Facebook at Citizen FM Abuja, Instagram at Citizen FM 937, and on X at Citizen FM 937. Today, I have a guest. In introducing my guest, you permit me to do a little using the military title to make my point. In 1977, a general, a military head of state of one of these African countries, woke up and decided to promote himself as a field marshal. The whole world team, military generals, military top hierarchy all over the world came and told him, you do not wake up and call yourself a field marshal. For you to be a field marshal, you must have commanded a multinational military force and won a major battle. That makes you a field marshal. Did you know what the man did? For those who could remember, he now decided to crown himself an emperor of a non-existing kingdom. He crowned himself an emperor, wasting 12 million of the poor country's resources to become an emperor. And when he died with his empire because there was no empire anywhere. Today, I have the privilege to welcome Tick Field Marshal, Labour Field Marshal. If I were to go through the military ranking and all that, this is a young man that came as the president of Medical and Health Workers Union of Nigeria. Let's say he was a major general then. Because of his performance, the Nigerian Labour family, the Nigerian Labour Congress, invited him more or less, and he was elected president, Nigeria Labour Congress. Do we now say that made him a general of the workers in Nigeria? As it is said, a golden fish has no hiding place. In 4 years, the International Trade Union Confederation, an amalgam of labor centers in more than 200 countries, also realized that this is a talent. And he was invited and elected president, International Trade Union Confederation, thereby earning the title of Labour Field Marshal of the world. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome with me, Comrade, Field Marshal, Dr. Ayuba Wabba. You're welcome.
Thank you very much, Uncle Person. Thank you for the privilege of appearing on Citizens FM 93.
Yes. You are now a veteran. Haven't left, the leadership. From the sideline, what are your observations about the current labor atmosphere? Let me put it that way.
Well, some office in all the elective positions I've held. Don't forget, in the last 35 years, I've been elected 11 times into different elective positions of trade union leadership, from the shop floor to my last position as the only African that was elected as president of the International Trade Union Confederation, which is based in Brussels, with 207 million members operating in 163 countries. As of the time I actually led that organization. So basically, I'm still very active, consulting, mentoring, and also participating in different trade union affairs around the world. Also been engaged by NECA. In fact, even yesterday I received invitation from NECA and many of our affiliates and labor centers that want us actually to, despite the fact that workers have not changed, the unions have not changed, but the dynamic is that governments have changed. And therefore, every government comes with their own perspective of how they want to deal with workers. And therefore, workers will now have to organize and continue to do engagement. So some will have it easier, like when we are coming actually from the rules of military. It's a bit easier because sometimes the military, the Democrats will say, people will say we are still having this military carryover. So they will quickly adjust and try to dialogue. But more and more, labor rights have been infringed upon. And basically even dialogue, which is a fundamental right. Under the ILO Convention 98, there is a provision for workers to organize and also collectively bargain with their employers, be it government or private employers. So more and more, that space for trade unions to try to collectively bargain what concerns them so that their heads are not shaved in their absence is actually being reduced under different dispensation. Under my dispensation, under Buhari, you remembered that the last engagement we had was in 2002. 2012 was pushing very hard for the subsidy to be withdrawn and also for the tariffs to be increased. And I remembered we put up a fight, and you remembered that a very high-level committee was constituted by Buhari, and all the paraphernalias of government were actually part of that meeting, where Festus Keyamo, as State Minister of Labour, chaired the committee that deals with the increase, and the SGF himself, and many others, including Minister of Petroleum, were on the committee that had to look at the issue of the total removal of subsidy. And look at it, that in every country, energy security is very, very important. And the totality of all of that, at the end of that meeting, all of us agreed that no, subsidy will not be totally withdrawn. We must have the capacity to produce, that we must make our refineries to work, so that we export our jobs. And I remember that report is still online. If you Google, you will see that report online, because all the parties of government signed. On the electricity tariff, we even agreed that the price will come down, that there is one variable that government need to address because they were at a different rate, whereas they are given to other interest groups at a lower rate. So in that report, it was recommended, and everybody agreed, that we should recommend the government that what makes the cost of electricity generation to be high is actually the gas component, and therefore government should actually bring down the price, and it should not be tied to the price of dollar. Because it's something we produce here at home, and it's something that actually Nigerians must benefit. So that was the totality of that report, and that's why Buhari, already in that report, agreed that no, there is no need for tariff increase, and also there is no need to totally withdraw subsidy, because we told him that the cost of inflation in Nigeria is actually anytime you increase the price of this very important commodity, petrol. Anytime you increase petrol, and studies, very verifiable studies have pointed to that is actually the trigger to inflation in Nigeria. Once you remove subsidy, or you have it under different dispensation, because before what we used to have is price increase. And it started from even before this democratic dispensation. Under the military, what they used to do is price increase. You remember that Abacha did price increase, but he then put PTF, the Petroleum Trust Fund, in place, that this subsidy should actually go so that people can see the dividend of it on ground. So basically now, this has been the story of how Labour have tried to engage. But for you to do, the government must be ready to create a platform where social dialogue will take place. Because one of the important pillars of decent work, as propounded by ILO, is actually this issue of social dialogue, where parties will come together to look at the issue from different prisms, from different interests, and then come up with what will be a win-win situation. And I think that opportunity under different government is being strange, because presently I think the president made it very clear yesterday that on the issue of tax reform, which is going to affect everybody, NSC tried all it could to be engaged so that they can make their input. That engagement never took place because there was no opportunity to even have the engagement. So you can see that under different dispensation, this particular important provision that ought to be there for people to engage, because it's better actually to jojo than to a war. Better actually to dialogue than resort to industrial action, and at the end of the day do fire brigade approach after the much damage has been made. So this is what I see as somebody that is actually looking at everything from now the point of an enlisted man when it comes to labor, or somebody that have served out. So this is what I can see, that this opportunity of promoting social dialogue is actually not there. And basically you see that in the past, the Minister of Labour is the chief conciliator. No any other party. Even when we had this dialogue, the Minister of Labour was there because he has to keep records of some of those things. So, you see now many strike because I'm not sure they have recognized the fact that the Minister of Labour is very central because they are the custodian of our labour laws. They are the custodian of the international labour status that Nigeria have signed to. So basically you must consult them. You must also give them opportunity to try to perform their duties and make sure that you take their technical advice because it will minimize strike. It will also make sure that people have confidence in the system. People will not resort to self-help. Mostly workers resort to help if there is no opportunity to try to dialogue and you take their position on board. So this is what I can see as somebody that have seen it all for more than 35 years. I've been in elective position in the labor movement. So this is what I can see from what is going on now and from what I can deduce from my colleagues that we relate on a daily basis on how to address labor issues and how to do their best to keep the legacy of our founding fathers, the Imodus, the Hassan Somodus, the Adams and the Pascals. This is actually the legacy that we have to do engagement and defend the workers' right.
Okay, well said. Unfortunately, when this government came on board, on the day the president was inaugurated, he said subsidy is gone. And it created a lot of problem. Even when the new minimum wage was negotiated and 70,000 was agreed, what has been the effect? Rising cost of living, food inflation, astronomical rent, especially in big cities like Abuja. In this case, some people have advocated that government should do more in providing housing, transportation, even try to bring down the prices of food. What is your position on this?
Yes, I quite agree with them because at the time the subsidy actually a plan of action to respond to some of the fallouts. There was none because it was much more later after the engagement of labor, the issue of CNG buses came on board, the issue of making sure that workers get something that was called like an advance pay. All of these were issues that then were the fallout of the impact of the subsidy removal. And the second impact of it was hyperinflation. Cost of goods and services actually went higher. Up till now, we have not recovered from it. So basically, I agree with you. The salary, even the 70,000, is nothing to write home because if you have a car, you are sure that in a week, I'm not sure it will fill your tank. And by the time you are to use the car to go to your place of work, I'm sure that 70,000 naira will not be enough actually to address that issue. And the worrisome part of it is that what of those that are not even working, those that live alone? That's why they now have to transfer the burden to their goods and services. If it is mama selling tomatoes, if before 5 pieces of tomato used to be 200 naira, what she will do is to reduce the 3 and make it 2, or increase the price now to 500 naira. That's how they will survive. So it has led to hyperinflation in the system and national poverty. And it's clear that is why our statistic and the statistics that have come out from many UN agencies point to the fact that many Nigerians have been thrown under the bus of poverty. And that's why many children are out of school. People cannot be able to pay school fees. You cannot be able to meet your daily needs. It's something that is really challenging. And we don't have a social security cover that can be able to address this issue. In many countries where they take these very hard decisions, they have a data of everybody. For instance, let me give you an instance. During the COVID in Switzerland, I was there. Because you remember the ILO, and also as the president of ITUC Global, I shuttled between Brussels and Geneva. So basically during that time, they have a credible data of all the citizens of Switzerland. And during that time, what they did was to transfer money into their account on the basis of how much tax you pay, how much money you generate from your business, without even you soliciting. Money was transferred directly into your account. Nigeria, we don't have a credible data. Even the data for the poor of the poor, we don't have. So even these social security funds that have been transferred remains. And that's why poverty have remained very perverse. I know, as a matter of fact, in my village, those are the poor of the poorest. Have they benefited? The answer is no. In my village, I know, because those people don't even have handset. In many cases, they don't even have handset, so they have not benefited. They cannot go and register for any social security intervention. So they remain where they are. There are people that cannot see 2,000 naira in 30 days. I've seen such people. If you go to the villages, you'll see them. So basically, this is where the situation remains unaddressed, and therefore the inequality gap continue to widen between the rich and the poor, because the rich continue to get richer, the poor will continue to get poorer. And that's not social justice. Social justice means we must take everybody on board, and therefore we must look at our policies. And that's why insecurity is actually on the increase, because they have seen it now as a business. The issue of kidnapping people for ransom is now thriving as a business. You cannot be able to address that issue using kinetics. No, you must provide jobs for the youth. You must make sure that the cost of living is low. You must make sure that everybody gets something to do. Our youths, after graduating, I've seen many. In fact, in my house now, they thought that, well, having been president of NLC, you can create jobs. No. I have CVs of even graduates that have one master's, PhDs, roaming the street, or they are underemployed. Underemployment means you are qualified, but the work you are doing cannot even sustain you. This is our situation. So basically, in order to make progress, we must look at the totality of this situation and try to do proper engagement. Because if you bring consultants from these Bretton Woods institutions, their perspective to development is different from our own. And I'm sure that the issue of removal of subsidy, you remember the history, is actually from this Bretton Woods institution.
Exactly.
It's a different platform from Nigeria. Their level of development and our own is different. So you cannot copy and paste and think that things will be okay, things will be well. Because as we are generating the money, we are not using the money to fight insecurity. That's the truth of it. Because if you look at our budget, a chunk of our money now goes to address the issue of insecurity. Exactly. But if we use the money now to create jobs and make life comfortable for people and engage the youth, the tendency is that insecurity will reduce, and basically you will be able to have a peace. You remember we have the Peace Summit, where we actually brought experts together, security agencies, development partners, experts in issues of security, and we had a report. And it came out very clearly that you must be able to create jobs for our youths, because a major trigger for the issue of insecurity is the fact that youths are not engaged. And even those people that are in the forests, most of them are not engaged. And therefore they use that as a cover to perpetrate all manner of insecurity in our country. And it has been on the increase. The fact of it is that it has been on the increase. There is no village now or town in Nigeria that you will not be able to see one form of insecurity or the other.
That's true.
So this is the issue, and therefore we must work to address the issue. Labor alone cannot be able to fight it out. Civil society must be ready. We must have people of goodwill coming up to be able to speak to it. And we must have a platform to try to do proper engagement so that this issue can be addressed.
Okay. Labor is the most organized in these, social partners. What immediate action do you think Labor could initiate, bringing in, civil society, maybe the students and all that, that we, give immediate, because the problem is really getting out of hand?
Yeah, the way to do it, I think our forefathers have tried to do in the past, Somonos and Ali Chiromas, is to look at the issues and challenges and come up with a charter of demand. You can look at the totality of the issue, be it minimum wage review, be it the tax issue, be it the issue of insecurity. You must have your own solution. And therefore, when you actually prepare your position and look at what solution do you think will work, and therefore you put up a charter of demand to government to say, well, those are the problems we have seen, and those problems have persisted. And therefore we want us to sit together to look at those issues. And you have done it in the past under SAP, you remembered. Somono Ali Chiroma leadership did that. Even Adams to a large extent did that. And even once we did that, there was a charter of demand when we were actually looking at diversity of those issues, which we try to put forward. And therefore, you now compel engagement, because in this case, you need to compel engagement. Once you put it, document it together, that those are the issues we want discussed. And therefore, they form part of your charter of demand. You also have to mobilize your members. They have to buy in. And mobilization is from the grassroots to the topmost leadership of organized labor. So once you do that, I'm sure no government will run away from engagement. And that's the only way you can be able to formulate policies and programs that will be able to address this fundamental issue. I remember under Buhari, I was a member of the National Development Agenda.
Okay.
Yeah, NLC was a member of the National Development Agenda, and Peter Said was actually the chairman. And I remember most of those issues, if you look at that development agenda, because at that time the old one actually elapsed and then a new one was formulated. So those are platforms you have. Once you are there, you can be able to make some input to be able to address some of those challenging issues. And that is the hallmark of trade union and labor.
Okay, you are an elder statesman now. I want you to comment on this incessant strike action, especially within the health industry. You have the privilege, founders of Johesu, that brought the other health workers together as one. But you now see that, we even speak now, Johesu has been on strike for more than a month. Today, this morning, I heard that the resident doctors have also given another, notice that by 12th they'll be downing tools. What can you do in your capacity as an elder statesman to intervene in this problem, a recurring problem in the public health sector?
Yes, I became the pioneer chairman of the Joint Health Sector Unions in 2009. We were negotiating the health salary structure. Because at that time, what happened was that a salary structure, all of us in the health sector then, that is the harmonized tertiary institution health salary structure. Doctors, all health workers, nurses were on the same salary structure. But government in its wisdom unilaterally abolished that system and gave medical doctors a new salary structure and actually raised that agitation. And we had to go into dialogue because government then constituted a committee to dialogue with us, and we dialogue with them, and that's what gave rise to the health salary structure, which we have enjoyed via Circular 1 of 1991. Because as far back as 1991, there were two salary structures in the health sector: the medical salary structure and then the health salary structure. And the two of them are almost the same, depending on your entry point. In fact, our one is more favorable, HSS, because you have annual increase. In there, basically, it was through a lateral process that was withdrawn and HATIS was introduced, and there was a lot of abnormalities in the HATIS. That was what brought the first agitation. And that's how we then formed the Joint Health Sector Unions, all the registered trade unions in the health sector. And then we now advance our interests. And that's how we signed that 2009 agreement and that reviewed everything. So that agreement has some provisions. Some of the provision inside is that some of the rates will be reviewed after some years. And that's what led to the present agitation. The second one that brought, I think, the compounding the issue was under a particular Minister of Labour, you remembered. Some of our professional allowances that we have enjoyed for some time was unilaterally withdrawn. One was the issue of consultancy, that no cadre will answer the name consultant except medical doctors. And we have faulted that. We brought international best practice. International best practice from the UK entails that you can have a consultant nurse. Yes. You can have a consultant pharmacist. You can have a consultant medical laboratory scientist. So it's reaching the apex of their career. Some of them are PhD holders. And we brought the information at that time that most of the innovations and discoveries in the health sector were not made by medical doctors, actually. We brought all those facts together. And at the end of the day, the Minister of Labour then said, well, since this is a dispute that could not be resolved, let all the parties agree that the issue will be referred to the National Industrial Court. But let us also agree that whatever the interpretation that came from the National Industrial Court, that both government and workers and the JOC people will agree with it. We say yes, we agree, because we are talking of best global practice.
Exactly. And
under the National Industrial Court practice is the fact that they can import best global practice to actually advance workers' issue. So the issue went on for about 2 years, and at the end of the day, we won. Won the issue of skipping. The court said, no, it was wrong for you to single out health workers to say they cannot. Two, on the issue of consultancy, all the issues were addressed. So it is an outshoot of that process that have not been well addressed. Because all of these issues, including speaking that the court spoke about, the consultancy that the court spoke about, all of these issues have not been well addressed. Father, I remember because the allowances were stopped, arrears accrued. So those are some of the issues to adjust the salary structure of one cadre, leaving all those automatically. Since the entry point of different cadres is different, if you increase the salary of one, you need to also review the other salary structures because the entry point is different. The entry point for medical doctors is different, for nurses is different, for pharmacists is different, for medical laboratories it's different. So when you adjust salary, you look at their table and also adjust it. That had been the major problem. This selective doing things, selective way of doing things without doing it holistically. But I think I must appreciate the fact that the current Minister of Health, Professor Patti, actually is somebody that has a global perspective. He's one of the best. I know that because within that period when we were having that issue, he voluntarily resigned as Minister of State. He voluntarily actually resigned. And I am of the confidence that from what I've seen, he has tried his best. I think a lot of recommendations have been made. I think it's for the recommendations to have approved, and those issues actually will be resolved. But I think he has a broader perspective of how health system is supposed to be run, how health system are run out there, and I think those are things that can actually assist. The last issue which I think came up, which I saw also people commenting on it, is this issue of extending the retirement age.
Yes.
So I think in all modesty, I think what the government did is also to look at what should be good for our system. Because they said even if you are a health professional, but you are in the ministry doing administrative job, that would not apply to you. And I think we should look at that as something that, because you see, we cannot be working until you get to the grave. No. It's because the situation is not good. That's why people are fighting for increasing years of service. In France, our unions are fighting day and night. And I think at one time, I was there. Why are they fighting? Because the government want to increase their retirement age by 2 years.
Yes, they wanted it.
They don't want it. They don't want their retirement age to be increased because they have a favorable retirement benefit. That when you retire for life, you will enjoy. So they want to retire and then go and do something else. So you can see the two sides of the coin. I say, no, if we retire, the benefit is not going to be enough. And basically, but people cannot continue to work until you actually go to the grave. So we must look at the two sides and try to see how we can support policies and programs. But in this case, I think a lot needs to be done to eliminate the issue of strike in the health sector. It has to do with collective bargaining agreements. If government sign a collective bargaining agreement, because government is a continuum, that collective bargaining agreement should be implemented. And in all of this case, it has to do with agreement. Be it resident doctors, be it the joint health sector unions, it's agreements that have been signed that are not being implemented, that workers then have to use their last resort because no worker want to go on strike. Strike is not a tea party. You organize strike. Workers don't feel happy going on strike. That's the reality of it. So basically, no worker enjoys going on strike, but it's a matter of last resort that your rights have been denied and you work in a very essential service area. In other parts of the world, essential services are very, very fundamental. So the issues are met, in fact, with dispatch. So I think what government need to do is to look at the totality of the agreement that have been signed by successive governments and try to implement them. And I must say that the present minister, Patti, is actually doing his best to try to do this. And the government need to give him all the necessary support because I remembered, I saw some of the reports. Clearly he said no, there should not be discrimination. That out there, health is a teamwork. A medical doctor may be a surgeon, you can do your best of surgeon. If there is no nursing care, it goes back to square zero. If there is no good lab result for you, even as a physician, to look at the patient and reach a conclusion, it's working if the place is not even cleaned. Basically, is an issue that we know. Health is a teamwork. There's a captain. Just like a football team, there must be a captain. There must be somebody that is leading the team. There must be a goalkeeper. There must be strikers. So all of them must work together harmoniously, as done in other climes. In other climes, if you enter, you don't even know who is a doctor. I've gone to many hospitals around the world. You know that I've visited more than 70 countries. in the span of my assignment. So in those countries, because health is my primary constituency, I visit their hospitals. So you cannot even differentiate. The uniform is even the same. You can only see on their name tag, or you ask. So this is how they work. Even their compensation is the same. In fact, there is a hospital I visited in Florida, because some of, when we're in PSI, our PSI person on migration is from Kenya. Okay. So he later migrated to Florida. So when I was in Florida, I visited their hospital. She was briefing me that here, sometimes they even earn higher than the doctors, because their own is clock in, clock out. How many patients did you attend to? Even if you're a surgeon, if in a month you didn't do any surgery, there's no way they will pay you. So there is a template of how you are paid, your productivity. It's not only because you pay salary. No, that's how good system work. Good stuff from, no, that's not how the system works out there. Yes, you can do locum. You can be working in about 10 hospitals, but they will pay you commensurate to the work you have done in hospital A, hospital B, and hospital C. So this is how a perfect health system works. And I think this is what we need to inculcate into our system to make our system work optimally. We need to digitalize the process. We are in the 5th industrial revolution, where technology and IT drives the process. Already these facilities have been deployed in hospitals around the world. The moment you are attending to a patient, they know the minutes you have spent, they know what you have done, because the moment you finish, you transmit to the next person, be it a nurse. If the person is going to be transferred to a ward, you don't carry paper. They have computers in the ward where they will see this doctor have attended to this person, he has examined him, this is his case, the person is supposed to be admitted, and therefore, these are the... So they have an empirical way of assessing work done and what should be paid. And that's why she told me, no, there are particular days that she even work extra. In fact, if you want to work extra hours, you are paid for that. And there's time they earn higher, because there is opportunity also for progression. In fact, went with a registered nurse. Now she's almost a consultant in nursing services. So there are many opportunities out there for people to exercise the zenith of their career. Not the ones we have here that you are limited. You cannot even be called, if you're a nurse, you cannot be called a consultant. No, that's not how the system works. So these are a compounded problem in the health sector, which I think we have tried to, the current leadership are also trying to address this issue. But holistically, government need to sit down with Ministry of Labour to bring out those agreements, look at areas where implementation have taken place, look at areas where implementation have not taken place, and address it holistically, and the issue of strike and the lockouts will actually end.
Okay. In fact, I had opportunity about 2 weeks ago to interview the Minister of State for Health, and he told me that, yes, this matter, they even had to, engage a consultant, a professor of human resources, and the man is working on staff evaluation. Both Johesu and the doctors have been told proper job evaluation in line with international best practice, that when that report is out, they will do the implementation. I'm sure it's in line with what you have just said.
Well, to a large extent, if it's one person, I don't know how it will work. There are processes to do job evaluation. I remembered under the former PAMSEC, Mama Lebo, in the Ministry of Labour, when that issue arose in 2008, there was actually a job evaluation that was done. A team of consultants, not one, were engaged to do a job evaluation, and that was done. What happened was that they did not accept that job evaluation report. But there was a job evaluation. I still have a copy of it now. I think the ministry have a copy. So it's for us to look at the best global practice. How is it done? So that interest will not actually drive the process of doing the job evaluation. Because job evaluation entails that you have to look at all the cadres and then try to evaluate your job and then just oppose it with what operates in other climes. That's how you get a good outcome, so that people will know what are the empirical data you use. Because if you put 1 + 1, it must give you 2. If it give you 3, then there's a problem. So I just hope people will have a buy-in and people will actually support the process. And if that is done in the best of way, I think people will accept it.
Okay, I think we'll go on a break so that you can catch your breath.
Credit must go to Governor Al-Makura of Nasarawa State then, who actually gave us concession of 50% discount on the CFO and all other fees to be paid on that land. And NLC fully Al-Makura actually left office. What we did was to try to invite him to come and do the groundbreaking, and then try to solicit that an access road. So before I left, that is the position of things. And I think that is still the position of things, because I'm not sure that had been created. But at a particular time, I'm aware that the NLC actually also wrote to the governor of Nasarawa State, the current governor, Sule, to try to follow up on the promise that was made earlier to try to get an access road, and then people can actually start developing their land. Because it's two sides of the plot. Half is belong to NLC, FCT Council, of which they have also tried to sell it out to workers, prospective subscribers, and we call the place Workers Village. So all the land have been subscribed out. So that's the only issue that is outstanding. So I am aware that the current leadership is following up on that to try to get the current governor of Nasarawa State to assist, because it's Workers Village, so his workers will benefit. It's also located in Nasarawa.
We have on organized labor, because somebody working from home, how do you organize him and all that?
Well, I think there is no cause for alarm. The global regulator of industrial relations in the world is ILO. ILO is actually the first specialized agency of the United Nations that relate the issues of labor, including laws all over the world. So I'm aware that a lot of those issues have been taken on board. Yeah, there are some jobs that certainly will be lost, but I assure you that every worker, whether you are working remotely or you are working virtually or you are working from any location, you need union protection. And that's why some of the latest affiliates of the NLC are actually the app drivers from the informal sector. The app drivers are the last affiliates. In fact, I was there when they started applying. The Uber drivers, even in the US, you can see now, even those that you think are comfortable, the Amazon workers, those from those platforms are already unionizing. Because even with that arrangement of working remotely, you need your right to be protected. If you have issue with your employer, because even if the employer is remotely, how do you then know? That's why the union will take it up. So ILO is coming up with a lot of guidelines and hopefully a convention to regulate such employment relationship. And in any case, there is no cause for alarm because workers remain workers. And even if you are self-employed, you remain a worker, because there are rights, fundamental rights that workers need to enjoy. And even as citizens, the Constitution Section 40 said, for the purpose of to belong to a trade union of your choice, a political party of your choice.
About Section 40 of the Constitution, the issue of politics comes in. You are retired. Any political ambition, and what is our Labour Party? We don't know the direction. It is said that one faction is headed by Festus Abure, another one by the former Mrs. Nanadi Usman. So what direction is Labour going? And what is your advice for those who have contributed to Labour?
The Labour Party started from the time of Michael Imodu in the 1940s, when they were in NCNC. At that time, they were invited as a Labour delegation to Britain, witness the Labour Party, because at that time, Labour Party holds sway in Britain. So invited formally, and they went as a delegation. Michael Imodu was there. I think Herbert Macaulay or other Azikiwe was there, because then they were actually together. That was what happened. So it was when he returned from necessity for the working class actually to form the Labour Party. So that issue was there. People like Aminu Kano, all of them actually have that thinking of how workers can actually play some roles in politics, because it's about how resources is shared, how decisions are taken, and therefore basically workers have an interest. So that's how the whole of this issue started, until when then the Labour Party was formed under Pascal Bafia as Party for Social Democracy, and under Adams the name was the process. And this is not only peculiar to Nigeria. In many countries in the world, they have such an arrangement. In fact, I can tell you for free that currently in Australia, it's Labour Party that is holding sway. They are part of the trade union. In fact, when I was there to hand over as the president of ITUC, the president of the country was there. And he made bold to say that workers elected him. And therefore, his policies must support workers. 2, in New Zealand, it's the same thing. And many of the ruling party, the strength of the ruling party in Britain is actually the trade unions. You know that. In fact, you remember the history of Frederick Ebert. Frederick Ebert was one of the presidents. He formed now a solidarity fund that will be taking care of social justice around the world. In China, I was there in China the union, All China Federation of Trade Union, and their party, they are one and the same. In fact, for you to become a leader in China, you must pass through the tripod. From the union, you must have a training in the party. They call it Workers' Party of China. You must have a training in the party. They have an institute. In fact, I went to the institute in China, their party institute. We were there. And at the time, the third in command in China was actually the president of the All China Federation of Trade Union, who later became the Minister of Defense for more than 10 years. So this is how they are structured, because all around the world, the strongest pillar of democracy, where democracy works, is actually the trade unions, because they are one of the most organized group of people with the number. You remember in Africa here, in Zambia, the first president, Chaluba, was the former president of the Zambian Labour Congress.
Exactly.
Presently in South Africa now, the president, Ramaphosa, was the general secretary of the Steelworkers Union, a member of COSATU, affiliate of the NLC. So this is how unions and politics have played out everywhere around the world. And that's why when Pascal formed the Labour Party, and the name was changed from Social Democracy to Labour Party in our Bauchi NEC meeting under Adams, we thought that the platform can be used by workers, because you know that in some of the political parties, even for you to get a ticket, a form, the money will cough out. I'm not sure workers will be able to afford that money. So it's in looking at that complexity that we say, no, we can have Labour Party, so that, because parties are mere platforms for you to now have access to political power. It's not the end, it's just the means. And you can see what we did in 2003, organize the Labour Party. But the most unfortunate thing is that people that use our platform to gain political power, they have now, all of them, defected. So you can see that it's because we brought people that are not from the core labor movement, but is to try to see how to rebuild the process. But also, I think it's to make it clear that the present leadership of the local Labour Party, you know also that they don't enjoy the goodwill of the NLC because of the fact that the laws have not been respected, their time of office have expired. We have had several memorandum of understanding under me, brokered by INEC, to say that there should be all-inclusive conference. So what we have is an empty shell. Workers and unions have left. The There is an empty shell. I can say that with all authority, that is an empty shell. And therefore, you will see in the coming election, because workers are not there, I don't think we can replicate what we have had into the new platform. But basically, they don't represent workers' interests. They don't represent the NLC interests, because NLC and TUC are supposed to be institutional members in the Labour Party, and I'm not sure any decision that has been taken, they are part of it. So basically, this is where I think the issue are. But that is not to discourage workers, because you have many parties, and therefore it's only a means of acquiring political power. My advice is that we can look at all the existing parties. That's my advice. Because a good person is always a good, bad person is always a bad person. Even if you take him to Labour Party, if he's a bad person, he will actually operate that bad tendency. So we should have this mental thinking to say that a good person is a good person. So we can go to, and good people are sought out, are sought for everywhere. So workers should not be deceived. They can look at all the existing parties and look at parties that exercise their political right and be elected. And when they are elected, they can make the difference. You can see Adams, he's there, but you can see the way he speaks. He has not forgotten his root. He has not forgotten that it's the working class that actually he used to arrive at where he is. Became governor twice, now a senator, and he has been a voice to continue to advocate for workers. So we need more of those voices in different political parties to be able to advance our interests. Let us not be dogmated with the fact that except it's Labour Party. No, Labour Party is now for the highest bidder. That is a fact. because I don't see difference if Labour Party will sell a ticket instead of giving, because the philosophy of our founding fathers is that Labour Party will not sell any ticket for contestants. It should be free. It should be free ticket. If people want to contest, it should be free. But if you go and be collecting millions, then what's the difference? There's no difference. And therefore, a bad son is a bad son. A good son should be a good son. So that's the philosophy. That's what the philosophy of our founding fathers, the Imodus, the Hassan Somonus, the Ali Chiromas, the Adams, the Pascals. That's not the founding principle of the Labour Party. No, that wasn't it. The founding principle is that it should be used as a platform for workers, wherever they are. If they are good, there are people who want to elect them, they don't have money, Labour Party should be able to say, come and take ticket. And workers should be able to support them by making sure that they support them and they are elected. But you have seen what has happened. Many of them have declined because they don't have the philosophy, the ideology of the working class. They are only using political parties as a mere platform to advance their interests, which is not the same with the interests of the working class.
Okay, because of time, we are gradually coming to the end of this session with you, which has been very, very engaging. What will you say is your legacy? Because I know, as a leader, you must have taken some very harsh, what people may think is harsh decision. But what do you think is your legacy, the legacy you left, especially at the NLC? I know that of medical and health is established. I'm a witness. But what's your legacy? What legacy do you think you left behind in the NLC?
Simple. The legacy is to continue to make sure that our core values of our founding fathers remains the pillar of our activity. And that core value is not to compromise, to do your best to defend the interests of workers, and to build on the successes of our founding fathers. One of them is one, you remember that we continued the principles of making sure that workers are represented. When workers are sacked, we have no excuse not to go and defend them. When rights are trampled, even at the peril, at the expense of our security, we are there to defend them, and people appreciated that. The issue of making sure that subsidy and all those issues, we also continue in the part of our founding fathers to resist. You remember we resisted under my leadership, and basically that's why the subsidy wasn't actually removed. It's because of the fact that we stood firm to say that if you do this, this is the outcome of it. The issue of making sure that we're able to document all the proceedings, including history of NLC. It was under my watch that we did NLC at 40, and I have about 8 publications. To the credit of the NLC, all those publications are there. People can be able to access them, and everything I'm saying were well documented. All those things were well documented. And secondly, we continued to make sure that the NLC is respected globally. Before I left office, you made it clear. I was elected without vying for the position because the firm have gone far and near, that we have done the best we could to defend workers' interests, even at our expense. And that was the first in Africa to be elected as president of ITUC Global. And that, I think, is a record that NLC is the only center in Africa that keeps that record, that I came from NLC and I was elected using the platform of NLC to preside over 207 million workers in 163 countries. It's a legacy that I think NLC will, for a very long time, continue to appreciate and also say that it's something that we have achieved. Not only that, if you look at my handover notes, try to document as because we may be around today, tomorrow, all those things. We try also to make sure that we strengthen the NLC because any organization that is not financially independent certainly cannot defend workers' rights. And that's what I brought from the Medical and Health Workers Union. As a weak union, we transformed the union to become an independent union, that you don't need to go to anybody to be able to get funds to run the organization. And throughout my tenure, you can go through the record. It's the most prosperous period within the NLC, and that's why we're able to build the Hassan Somono Court, a befitting edifice to actually appreciate our founding president. And you know that occasion was very huge. And before we left, we were able to meet all our obligations, and that is very, very important and strategic. Lastly, I was able to bring to the fold many, many affiliates. I took over, I think, when we had about 38, 39 affiliates. Before I left, we have 50-something affiliates. That means the confidence of the workers in the NLC have grown higher. I brought unions like pilots and engineers, which before, they were not under the NLC umbrella. All the senior staff associations of the tertiary institutions, polytechnics, colleges of education, all of them were then brought under NLC. Remember the issue of the parliamentary staff union. You remember the issue of the judicial staff union. All of them now enjoy the protection and NLC, and they're formidable within NLC. So that's a very big legacy to build. You meet an organization where it is and then build it to a stronger and more formidable level. We came in when there was crisis and we were able to reunite the house and brought in more members. And I think that's a legacy that I think I should be able to say that we have done that, because it's the strength of the organization that will be able to defend workers. A weak organization cannot be able to defend workers' organization. And today, when NLC calls a strike, you will imagine what will happen, because of the fact that in every sector of the economy, we have affiliates, formidable affiliates, strong affiliates that understand the rudiments of trade union movement and why they are there to defend the interests of workers. So we cannot take all of this for granted. Those are things that were achieved under my leadership to build a very strong, formidable organization that has one of the largest membership.
Well, we thank you. In 1 minute, because this is a program for workers and all that, they are listening. What message do you have for the Nigerian workers?
The message I have for Nigerian workers is for them to continue to have faith in their trade unions where they are affiliated to and the labor center. In most situations, people forget the fact that they have unions that affiliate to NLC. Some of the issues they are bringing to NLC is actually supposed to be addressed by their trade unions. It is when the trade union tried and there is such, because NLC is like an umbrella. So they should continue to have faith in their unions, build the unions, because there is nothing a worker have gotten under the earth that is not through his union. From the first 7-day work, 5 days work per week, because before then, 40 hours per week, it was workers that unions that fought for it. Everything, wage issue, everything, maternity leave, everything you think of in the world, it was actually fought by the union, because it's not just the goodwill of the employer that will say take. No, that's not the issue. And therefore, they must continue to have faith in their unions, in the labor centers, and then going forward is to continue to give all their support. When there is an action, they should be able, people that will be murmuring, complaining, and even accusing somebody that is a victim. We shouldn't be accusing ourselves. All of us are victims of the system. So you shouldn't be accusing somebody that is also victims of systems. So workers, in some cases, they forget that all of us are victims of a particular situation. And a union leader is somebody that is elected by his union.
Yes.
The workers elect him. So when you elect him, you must give him all the necessary confidence, because we draw power from below in unions, not power from top below. No, power is from below. You must be elected from below before you represent your workers. So my last message to them is they should continue to have faith, despite the challenges in the system, despite the challenges of the economy, despite the system that is not providing and meeting their needs. They should continue to have faith in unions, because unions will continue to defend them.
Thank you very much. Like I told you at the beginning of this program, my guest has been Labour Field Marshal Ayuba Wabba. I think it's